Thank you, Michael. Well, we're joined here by Christine Geary. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today. Your life has brought you from the far north of Canada in the Northwest Territories toward Eastern Ontario and owning a business and around the world. And I want to just take a few moments to hear about that journey.
So I grew up north, and I spent my childhood up there till I was 15. We lived in Norman Wells, we lived in Fort Good Hope, and then we moved to the Yukon, and I lived at mile 1083 of the Alaska Highway, which was a town called Destruction Bay, which I think had population 30. We are mountain Dene, so we are trappers and hunters. You know, we talk about food scarcity now, and you know, I was talking to my auntie and she said, Gracie, we have to go back to the old ways of hunting and trapping.
I understand that there was a diary that you had that was a part of your journey. Could you tell us a little bit about that and the events that unfolded that were related to the stories that it contained?
Of course. So when I was younger, one of the teachers in our schools, a white teacher who had come up, had talked to me because I was really struggling in school and behavior, and so she said to me, you know, you should write things down in a journal. It'll help you feel better, and you know, it'll help you deal through things. So I started writing in this journal about things that I had been experiencing, but I didn't know that these things were not done. So I started writing in this journal about different things that were happening to me, different beatings that I was getting. My mom, for example, when she was raging, she would run around the house with a shotgun, and she said she was going to kill us. There was sexual abuse by relatives. There was sexual abuse by my stepfather that my mother remarried, and I wrote all of this down. So one time, I had hidden this diary behind a picture frame, and it was discovered. And so when I walked into the room, she was holding the journal, and I looked at it, and she said, "This is wrong." And I said, "It is?" She goes, "This is so wrong." She said, you either tell somebody or I'm telling the police." So I told.
And you're placed with a family who was involved with Rotary.
Yes. So I was placed with a paternal uncle who was a Rotarian. So, you know, I had been so sheltered. Up north, you're so sheltered. You know, there's, like I said, there's no television, no radio, and they felt that the best way for me to learn, because I wasn't doing well in school, I couldn't sit still. I couldn't sit in school. We never did. We were allowed to run wild. Like we went to school in the mornings, but we didn't even study. Like we really didn't do anything. You know, we were always outside hunting, trapping, you know, out on the trap lines. Like I was really great at rabbits. Like I could snare rabbits and
Which
skin
is its
rabbits.
own body of knowledge.
Yes.
It needs to be said.
But when I came south, when we came to the south, I didn't know how to go to school. You had to go to school every day. You had to shower every day. We didn't shower every day. We bathed once a week, and we bathed in the same bath water, right? Because you had to heat it all up. I mean, it wasn't fun, but we bathed once a week. So all of a sudden in the south, you had to shower every day, wash your hair every day, go to school every day, and have homework. Like we just didn't have that. I remember when I lived with them, I had struggled being in school, adjusting to this white life, the southern life. And I think they acknowledged that and said that maybe the best opportunity for you to learn and grow is to travel, not sitting at a desk behind, you know, behind a book. So when I graduated high school, I was the first one in my family. You know, that's when they said, I think travel would be great for you. And I applied to be a Rotary Exchange student, and I got accepted to go to Italy. And I remember arriving, I didn't speak a word of Italian. I was placed in a town called Rovereto, and it was just north of Verona. And nobody spoke English. There was one fella, his name was Padre Zanini. He was a monk, and he was the only one that spoke English. And I remember being in awe that this girl from the north was in Italy, and I remember being in Piazza San Marco, looking around, and I just remember thinking, if they could see me now, if they could see me now, I couldn't believe it myself. This little girl from Norman Wells, this Satu Dene girl, was in Italy was magical. And I love sharing that with all of my clients now, that wonder of travel. I'm blessed.
And now it's your career. You do this
Yeah.
for a living.
Yes.
Have you ever been back to that exact spot?
I have.
Tell me
I
about that.
have. Oh, I was just in Venice last year, and I went to Ponte Vecchio, and it was the exact same spot that I was at, 50 years ago. And it's an amazing feeling when you go back there and your whole life has bridged from that moment, coming out of the north, being taken to Piazza San Marco, and coming back there as a grown adult indigenous woman, thinking, I can now show this to my people with the social media platforms that we have available now up north. They have all of these platforms that they can follow me and share in my journeys, and I can show them the world without them actually having to leave the community yet. So I think it's been a blessing for me to be able to travel, and now through all of these platforms to be able to share my journey with my people and the world.
It's a story of overcoming in so many ways, and it's an unlikely story, but I think that that's what's so exciting about it, is that your isolation may have really kind of set the stage for a life that wasn't going to maybe be one that was moving around, or at least you wouldn't think so. And here you are. It seems like it's more often than not that you're out of the country, you're not in Canada when I talk to you, than when we do correspond, that you are in your office in Kingston. Tell me a little bit about how in your life you're taking both of those sets of experiences and you're working with them together. I know that you've had your life in the far north, you're a well-respected, world-renowned travel guide. How are you bringing both of those together? Because you really live in two different worlds.
That's a great question, Mark. And I think, with the experience that have happened in my life, having been raised in the north, having lived there for 15 years and being part of that experience, and then being adopted out and being taken into the white man's world, and that's what we called the South back then. It was interesting because when I was taken out and adopted out, I didn't realize that I was a white person until I got here and went to school. That was the most incredible thing. I'll never forget going to school. I looked like everybody else there. Whereas when I was up north, I was the only white one. Well, there was this guy, Ronald Scott, and his dad ran the Hudson's Bay Company, but I was the only white person up there. The moon-faced one was me. And then when I was adopted out to the south, everybody else looked like me. And but I thought for sure they all knew that I was Indian because that's who I was and that's who I am. But I think I've had such wonderful opportunities to have an education. I look at reconciliation for my people and moving forward to a path of betterment for everybody. I think that I've been blessed to be able to share what my journey has been, and so others who come after me can follow that journey as well. At Maple Leaf Tours, we're really investing strongly in scholarships for Indigenous children, because I believe that the way to reconciliation and moving forward is education. And I was lucky enough to be able to have those opportunities, and I'm wanting to really use my life experience and my life journey to help my people who are coming after me.
The fact of the matter is that education is an antidote for intergenerational trauma, and it's something that we hope we're participating in here, and that others will hopefully take up themselves if this has been a part of their life or they've been interested in the topic. We know a book is forthcoming.
Yes.
So how can people follow you online and track with you if they want to see what's next in your story?
Great. They can follow me on Instagram. They can follow me on Facebook. It's a journey that's worth writing, and I think there are a lot of people like me who have a similar story. I think that intergenerational trauma is a big part of the book that I'm writing, because I think a lot of people don't understand why Indigenous people are living the way that they're living, why they're living in poverty, why they're living with alcoholism. I think if people knew more, and this is part of education, as to what happened to people in residential schools, what happened to my mother, my relatives, how they were torn from their families as children and taken away and never to be returned because colonialism took the Indian out of them or tried to take the Indian out of them. I think, you know, I'm a very big advocate of Orange Shirt Day. September 20th is our National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, where we acknowledge all of the young children that were taken from their families and never returned. In Kamloops, British Columbia, that's 215 children in unmarked graves that they have found. Indigenous children who were torn from their families and never returned. There was those people in those Indigenous communities who were torn and taken away to these schools, were beaten, were tortured, and were never the same. And as a result, the children that came after them, like me, my mother was in residential school. My children still live with that intergenerational trauma. So my mission is to write a book, to bring it to the forefront, to expose what our relatives, our people, our ancestors went through, and to work for reconciliation and education so that the world understands and can help work towards reconciliation and making the Indigenous community a better place. And I so appreciate the opportunity that WPBS has given us to share this story.
Thank you for the privilege of sharing it with us, and we appreciate the opportunity to hear from you. We hope that people will get involved.
Merci.